Hello there, folks. Welcome to the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pitch the Podium. And after all the build up we've done around here of the USGP, it's finally time for the preview. And there's so much good stuff coming on the way. We have to speak about the weekend, about the penalties, about Verstappen and Hamilton. Finally, a chance to see them battle without any shenanigans in the way. Hopefully, that is. Which version of Valtteri Bottas comes into race this weekend? What will the NBA stars be like when they, of course, coach the Formula One drivers in the basketball game that they're going to have? Not a game per se, but a shooting contest. You know what I mean. But also more on Circuit of the Americas. Why is this circuit such a good one usually for some really good racing? All of this and more on this special episode of the USGP preview on the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pitch the Podium. Welcome back in, folks. Welcome to Pitch the Podium and the Inside Line F1 podcast. So glad to have all of you listening and watching this episode. We've had all the build up. We've spoken about our favorite US races from back in the day. We've had a word with Mr. Bob Varsha, and we shall discuss that episode in a second. But first, I have to introduce you to my co host, Mr. Kunal Shah. It's been a while since I've called you Mr. Kunal, but still, he is the former marketing head of the Force India F1 team, now working as a motorsport consultant for the VS Sport Network and their global broadcasts of Formula One. Just tremendous stuff that Kunal does on a weekly and a daily basis. So Kunal, US finally back in. It's been, 2 years? And it was so good to have Bob Varsha, the legendary American broadcaster, the voice of Formula One in the USA, just lay down context of what Formula One actually means in the US. And it was such an amazing episode to record with him.
It was. So thank you very much for that fantastic introduction, Samuel. You just, you're literally progressing with each time, adding more and more adjectives to my name while never saying anything about yourself. But ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce my fantastic co-host, a young 17, almost 18-year-old boy. Literally, he is that young. I swear I've checked, but yeah, he doesn't ever sound it. His history and knowledge of the sport is unparalleled. And of course, he at that young age, or at least when he was 15 and 16, hosted a web series on motorsport called The Driving Force, which is available on Disney Plus and Hotstar. Yeah. But yes, from one budding broadcaster talking to a legendary veteran broadcaster. We had Bob Varsha on the episode. I'm sure a lot of you listeners have already heard him in. It's a part of our special programming for the United States Grand Prix, which is this weekend, of course. And for everyone who actually listened in, I was so awestruck with Bob's insights and anecdotes and just the way he presented Formula One and how he's literally experienced it over almost 40 years. I literally spoke for 46 seconds. No reference to Valentino Rossi, but yes, 46 seconds in the 1 hour long episode. I kid you not. Go back and hear him out. And if that's not a reason enough, maybe Samuel, you and I should give them a reason enough. What was your highlight? One highlight, come on, from Bob's episode.
It wasn't you speaking less. That's a reason for me to tune in. Even though I'm the one recording with you, I still go back and listen. Hey, I'm a fan. But still, point is, when he conveyed that America's love-hate relationship of Formula One, and he conveyed how that came about, and rather why it took longer for the US to get onto the F1 map properly. And I mean, it was thereabouts. There were so many efforts, USGP West, it was Phoenix, it was Dallas, and so on and so forth. But the way he conveyed that actually broadcasts being on TV made the matters worse was very interesting, because he had a point saying that the races were so late at night, literally 0 dark 30 is the term he used, that it often never really competed with the likes of IndyCar and NASCAR, and you really had to seek it out. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the insights he gave. And what was your favorite one, Kunal, from that? Because I get a feeling there were a few of those.
There were more than a few, yeah. And if I have to pick one, I'll pick one which is recently doing the rumors. Colton Herta waiting to see how the Andretti Sauber deal goes and if he makes a switch from IndyCar to Formula One. And we're all wondering, it's going to happen. American-bred driver into a European, run series, however you sort of see it, right? It's racing on either side of the pond, as we keep saying, right? And to me, is he ready for it? What are the challenges he'll go through? What is it that he can actually do in his preparation? And I loved Bob's insights on that, and frankly, what Bob said, that Colton should do what Alan Prost did for his Formula One debut was a brilliant insight for me. And
Yeah.
guys, I can't explain it as well as Bob did. So literally just go back and hear that episode. But Soumil, what you have explained is what you actually learned from Bob. But
Yeah.
what was your one highlight, if I may ask you that?
USF1 team. I was literally 7 years old when the news of the USF1 team came about. I was really excited because there was a possibility that maybe, Karun Chando could be in one of the three new teams coming in for 2010. Could have been four, by the way. And Bob explained why it wasn't four, why the USF1 team didn't come about. And the fun fact is, he was there the whole time. He had shot a few videos, which you can actually check after this episode ends, by the way, just demonstrating the USF1 factory, meeting the people out there. And he just posed an amazing question. What if that team had gone ahead? What if the team had properly paid their bills, which was eventually the issue that they encountered? And he's also explained what sort of technology they were developing in. And it really was exciting stuff. And you wonder, has that technology made its way into F1 today? What sort of team could that have been? I still wonder. 2010, well, let's just say they seem like the most promising of the lot, if only they had their accounting work done. And that's not my words, that's Bob's words. And so you get an idea of how good of an episode that was on an objective scale. But hey, once you're done with that episode, you will actually just feel that, wow, this race weekend feels a little bit more. There is a genuine history, there is a genuine connect. And I suppose, Kunal, this just might be the most popular Formula One has to be in the US heading into a race weekend. Because what have we got? 300,000 fans coming in this time out? It's a ridiculous number. Just like compensating for the last year that we didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. It depends also who you ask. If you ask the guys at Kota and girls at Kota, I'm just referencing to guys as a common term, guys, right? They will say 360,000 fans. And apparently, there was some research that said that fans spend up to $1,500 over the weekend of the American Grand Prix. So there is, of course, a massive commercial impact as well. But let's sort of move on about the race preview that we do. What is it that we're looking forward to this weekend? And let's remember, guys, it's Liberty Media's home race as well. They are an American corporate giant, as we know. It's their home race. Formula One recently announced the promotional and content tie-up with the NBA, which I thought was extremely awesome. And, Liberty Media are marketing geniuses. And to me, this is another, genius trick out of their hat, Soumil, because, all the sort of cross publicity they can get to reach out to as many more American audiences is fantastic.
And Bob also mentioned why the US is such a big prize for Formula One. Hence why they're tying up with the NBA first and not, say, a league like the Premier League. But the crossover potential that they've got. And first up, they're going to have that basketball competition, I think, early on in the weekend. And watch out for Ferrari. Because there's been a video doing the rounds of Mattia Binotto playing basketball. And apparently, Kunal, he's quite good at it. But he's not the only person who will be shooting his shots. There'll be Lewis Hamilton right there because now he's rid of the penalty. Now things have just been lifted off from his shoulder. Now we can focus on a Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton fight free from any legal, or I wouldn't call it legal, but sort of regulation-based shenanigans. Now it's just driver versus driver. And you get a feeling that this final stretch is going to be one of the most exciting ends to an F1 season. It may sound like a cliche thing that every podcaster must say, but how else do you put it, right? It is what it is.
It is what it is. And before we move on to that, I'm going to make two wild guesses. Okay. This is all down to NBA and Formula One. They've done a partnership for content and promotion. So we are making some content around it, right? And of course, this is in lighter note. But I get a feeling, from what Formula One has divulged so far, they're going to be the NBA legends who are going to train the Formula One drivers in this shootout competition that's going to be there. And I get the feeling Ferrari might just nominate Matteo Binotto to stand in for one of their drivers, given just how precise he was in that social media video that went viral in terms of his striking, if that's the word I may use. So that's one prediction. And the second is, again, for all our listeners in Japan, no hard feelings, but I am waiting for that, the tallest NBA player along with the shortest Formula One driver on the grid, Yuki Tsunoda. I'm waiting for that picture. Somebody is going to put that picture out, mind you guys. I'm telling you, mark my words.
Oh man, now that you've said it, it's quite. It makes a world of difference. It really does. But yeah, Yuki's fast, right? That's what matters. And well, I've just said a wrong thing, haven't I? Yuki is fast, but he's not quite able to make much of it happen. But hey, more on that later on. When we get to Alpha Tauri, that's the point. They'll be running a special livery, by the way, just like Red Bull Racing, sporting an Acura badge instead of Honda. Right? They've got to do it, right? It's the American market. You promote the brand that's the most relevant to the audience, and that is Acura. Although it's hard to see much of it when you're really sitting in the grandstands, but hey ho, whatever. That's the thing. But there could be a chance that one of those cars could be on the top step, Kunal, because Max now is a genuine layer of intrigue. You don't even know which circuit is a Red Bull circuit, which circuit is a Mercedes circuit, and that's what's making this season so exciting. The fact that you genuinely can't pick out who's got the advantage, because what would you do? Historically, go back to 2019, 2 years ago, when so much has changed? Don't think you can, and that's amazing to do.
Yeah, you can't. And, my mind is literally going down one road, which is, will Red Bull be competitive at the United States Grand Prix? Literally, that's the question. Because if you were to take the data over the last, 3, 4, 5 races, especially Turkey, they had a gap that they never knew probably existed between themselves and Mercedes. And then, of course, it came into light that Adrian Newey had a bicycle crash, and then he was out of action. But now he's back in some capacity. He's found out the setup issues they had in Turkey. So hopefully that's good signs for Formula One, Max Verstappen, Red Bull Racing, everybody else who wants a battle between the two generational talents that we have. So I really hope that they have found pace, and they will be on the pace. I don't care who wins, like I keep saying, as long as there's a battle, in the end. And so that's the key question. Does Red Bull really have the pace, or has Mercedes found that trick after their, massive upgrade they brought in Silverstone? And remember, Silverstone was back in like June, July.
Yeah.
And we are now just knocking on the doors of November. And they have kept optimizing their package to a level where Red Bull have, of course, been flummoxed. They've been like, what on earth? We can't match their straight line speeds, even with lower wing levels. And then Mark Hughes, one of my favorite readers or writers, on Formula One, he's done a very good explanation of one of the tricks that Mercedes could be using to sort of get that kind of speed advantage. And of course, by trick, I don't mean it's an illegal trick. I'm just saying one of those setup tricks that they've probably sort of found. And I'm actually going to link to that in the description of this episode for those of you who want to take a technical dive into what I'm talking about.
Hands up, that would be me, first person. But it's crazy, Kunal, isn't it? That when we had the Austrian GP early in the year, wow, that's a while ago, seriously. But when we had that race, it seemed like Mercedes were properly down and out. It seemed like Red Bull would dominate everything. Then Silverstone happened, and then it seemed like, yeah, they found a bit of competitive momentum. And then you can't tell, because at Zandvoort, Red Bull were phenomenal. They just were, I mean Red Bull, I say Max Verstappen mainly. He was the main protagonist of that race. But it's so crazy that suddenly the switch has flipped up, and all of a sudden Red Bull look like the slower ones. It's all within 8 or 9 months that this is happening. It's crazy how a Formula One World Championship actually topples around and takes its twists and turns. It's just outstanding. And this one, wide open circuit, is always an opportunity for racing. In the past, it has acted like a title decider as well in 2015. The stars and stripes. The stars and stripes are aligning for what turns out to be a really good race, hopefully, this weekend.
It should. And again, I'm going to quote Mark Hughes. He said that if a circuit rewards lap time for, performance based on downforce, it is Red Bull that's typically the car that's quicker. And if it's a circuit that sort of gives extra importance on Low drag, it's a circuit that favors the Mercedes. That's usually, not the rule of thumb, but that's usually what he has seen happen. And Kota is, of course, Lewis Hamilton happy hunting ground. But at the same time, it's also a little more on the high downforce side of things, so to say, right? And to me, it's going to be interesting to see how we can sort of going this weekend. And before we move on to the next point, Somil, what about Kota are you looking forward to the most, apart from all the NBA? And again, you will find some A-listing American personalities and celebrities and Hollywood and the likes as well, but not just that. Anything about the circuit that sort of stands out for you?
Dun, 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 the Verstopper. Yeah, that curve, that curve that we have on the inside of, what turn number was it? Honestly, I'll start a rant about American circuits and their numbering of corners. It really irritates me, but it's the long sweeping right-hander, the turn 8 of Circuit of the Americas. Not turn 8, but Turkey turn 8 reversed into Circuit of the Americas. It's hard to remember all the numbers, right? Just give them real names, like call it the sweeping right-hander or something quite like that. But that corner has a really big curb on the inside line that was... Oh, inside line, amazing. A curb on the inside line that stopped Max Verstappen. I mean, it was put in after Verstappen actually sneaked past Kimi Raikkonen and got a penalty, of course, and eventually was demoted off the podium. But that curb canal can be a really tricky one. Now, this year, we have seen racing. In the last couple of years, we didn't quite see cars go side by side a lot. But this year, we have seen that. Now, whether it's down to the downforce, whether it's down to the cars, whatever, but the competition is closer. There could be a chance of someone actually going side by side, and that curb is so huge, and it still exists. It's a worrying sight. Plus, the bumpiness of the surface as well, apparently, has been one thing that's been doing the rounds.
I agree. The bumps is definitely something the drivers will not be looking forward to, but that's something that's been spoken about time and again. Then there's turn 1, the classic uphill braking, turn left, pretty much blinded entry. I absolutely love that turn 1, and I can only imagine how it must feel. When you're sitting that low in a Formula One car and you're looking up and you're like, oh my God, it's going all the way up, up and there. And then, of course, the high speed sector 1, it's like a high speed slalom without all the cones. You're literally just going left, right, left, and so on. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, if the meow guy or girl is there at the circuit, adding some more, extra audio effects for us as well. But yes, I am also looking forward to see which version of Valtteri Bottas turns up this weekend of the American Grand Prix, Samuel.
That's a good point, Kunal. 2019, Bottas was your winner. And Turkish GP, the last time out Formula One raced, Bottas was your winner. Now, you, Kunal, you pointed out a very interesting fact. You said that Bottas has actually scored more points since his Mercedes leaving announcement than any other driver on the grid. He's just found a tremendous run of form, but you never know with him, right? Last time out, Hamilton had a penalty, so that's why he was liberated to go out there and do a little bit better. If Hamilton is around at the top, you get a feeling that he will be clipped a little bit to maybe help support Hamilton's cause, but there is a genuine chance. This carefree version of Valtteri Bottas is just outstandingly fun. And the fun is probably a word that was missing from his Arsenal for the last year and a half, I suppose. It's back again.
Yeah, it is. And, if Hamilton is right around Valtteri Bottas, Bottas might not be as free in the land of the free to go ahead and, control his fate of the Grand Prix weekend. But, it's all zeroing down, 6 races to go. The number 2 drivers delivered on a very solid basis in Turkey. Unfortunate for Perez that when he actually got under the podium and he blocked Hamilton from getting there, Bottas actually went one better than him and then Max Verstappen. But it's all adding in. All factors are going to start playing out come, the qualifying this weekend, Somil. So let's see what version of, Checo Perez turns up. Is it the Racing Point Force India, version of Checo Perez, or is it the Red Bull Checo Perez, and the Red Bull one is, of course, been full of spikes and troughs and, highs and lows. So if all 4 drivers bring their A game to the American Grand Prix, I think we're going to have a really awesome race. And then not to forget, the battle between McLaren and Ferrari as well.
Yeah, it's a big if, though. It's a big if. We've been hoping for that the entire year. It's not happened so far. I hope this is the chance where we get to see something like that. Last 6 races of the year, right? Just go for it, have some fun. But it's, of course, mainly in an effort to try and make sure that all the other top drivers, Verstappen and Hamilton, do get the most support. And that's what Sergio Perez's role has been so far this year. But you rightly mentioned, Kunal, with McLaren and Ferrari, it's an amazing battle. It's crazy how, just like Red Bull and Mercedes, the momentum is also swinging wildly. And suddenly, Ferrari just have all the support behind them after a McLaren tidal wave of sorts in Monza and the race after that. It's just amazing to see how this championship is taking shape. And the best part for Ferrari is not only do they have a really good team principal who can actually shoot his shots, they also have two really quick drivers who are constantly putting out the best races that they can as drivers. And that is a very encouraging sign that McLaren would feel slightly worried about in what is genuinely a critical market for both of them.
It is. It's actually, a critical market for both the iconic brands, I would say. And to just add some more reference or context to this, I think Ricardo in McLaren and Charles Leclerc in Ferrari are the two drivers under even more pressure than their teammates, because clearly I don't need to explain why, but the most outstanding fact for me, and this is just down to numbers, is that after 16 rounds that we've had, Carlos Sainz Jr. is half a point ahead of Charles Leclerc. And at the start of the season, if you would have spoken to anyone, you would have, most people would have been like, yeah, Ricardo's going to be another level of an animal for, Lando Norris to tame. Carlos Sainz was probably not as quick in McLaren and whatever. They'd have given some theory. I would have probably done that. And similarly for, Ferrari as well, people would have been like, yeah, Charles Leclerc is going to prove why he's clearly number one and why he was chosen over Sebastian Vettel and so on. And here we see Carlos Sainz Jr. driving fantastic, mature races. And a lot of, Carlos Sainz's racecraft reminds me of Fernando Alonso from his younger days as well. And of course, I don't necessarily mean Alonso back when with Renault, when he was just out and out wanting to win, but Alonso in through the McLaren and now even the Alpine days as well. Consistent, very mature, staying in there, making the most of his opportunities, and just maximizing points potential when you know that all you can do is score maximum points, but not literally go for the maximum points.
And fiddling with the rules. It's like Fernando Alonso, in a wrestling term, did a heel turn after Austria when he realized that, well, all is against me, might as well become a villain at this time and try and test all the laws. So he did what he did in Russia. He's been doing what he's doing in Turkey as well. It's just Fernando Alonso, right? But you're right about that. Luck should potentially and hopefully be on his side, because if it is, imagine what a tasty prospect that could be like. Alonso, Gasly in that midfield as well, who's also needing a bit of luck at that same point of time. You can't count McLaren and Ferrari in the same fight, but with Alonso, he always pushes them. But even Aston Martin, right? That could be a really sweet-looking midfield battle, Kunal. But finally, before we go off, what's the one thing you're actually looking forward to apart from all these things that we mentioned right there? Any final thoughts?
I am actually looking forward to a bit of pre-race entertainment, that the organizers at COTA would have sort of put in there. Because I remember, there was, I think it was the first race when they invited all or introduced all the drivers in
18.
the boxings in some year. There you go. You remember it, right?
Yeah.
So is there something special that I planned, something more American in the way they do things? They had the Stetsons and they've had various levels of things that are there. So that's something I'm, looking forward to. And for everyone who thinks, oh my God, that's so lame for being a Formula One podcaster, the one thing you're looking forward to is the non-Formula One things about it. No. If there was something about the race I'm looking forward to seeing if Fernando Alonso's Lady Luck is going to be with him for the race in America, because I think the last couple of races, maybe a little more, he's been there and abouts, and like I can't imagine how Turkey could have been a little more different if Fernando would have stayed in the top 5 and not having spun himself out and so on. So that's something I'm looking to. You mentioned AlphaTauri. Pierre Gasly's best score here has been P12. So what happens to him
Yeah.
as well? So he needs a change of luck. And then Sebastian Vettel has not scored since Spa this year. And that's, I don't even know how many races back. So lots of drivers needing to maximize opportunities, but more than that, literally have their lady luck, riding along with them at the race this weekend.
I'm going to crack a very bad joke to wrap off, but hopefully their luck will say, I go to America, like the movie Borat. Yeah, sorry, bad note to end on. But you get the idea, right? This weekend is exciting. This weekend is fun. And we're going to do a lot more coverage on the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pitch the Podium, hopefully with better jokes. That's a knock on myself. But folks, I hope you had a good time listening to this episode and watching this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, do check out our race review as it comes out on Monday morning, basically all over the world, or maybe late Sunday evening if you're in the US. So don't forget to do that. We shall see you right there. But enjoy the weekend, folks. Have fun and enjoy the entertainment on and off the track this time out. See you.
Bye bye. Thank you.